Achilles, admonished in a dream by the ghost of his friend, celebrates the funeral of Patroclus. Thus they indeed were mourning through the city, but the Greeks, as soon as they reached the ships and the Hellespont, were separated each to his own ship. But Achilles did not permit the Myrmidons to be dispersed, but he spoke amongst his warlike companions thus: Ye swift-horsed Myrmidons, comrades dear to me, let us not yet loose the solid-hoofed steeds from under our chariots, but with the very horses and chariots going near, let us bewail Patroclus, for this is the honour of the dead. But when we have indulged sad lamentation, unyoking our steeds, we will all sup here. Thus he spoke, but they mourned in a body, and Achilles led the way. Thrice they drove their fair-maned steeds around the body, grieving, and among them Thetis kindled a longing for lamentation. Moistened were the sands, and moistened were the arms of the men with tears, for so brave a master of the flight they longed. But among them the son of Peleus led the abundant lamentation, laying his manslaughtering hands upon the breast of his companion. Hail, O Patroclus, even in the dwelling of Hades, for now shall I accomplish all those things which formerly I promised, that having dragged Hector hither, I would give him to the dogs to be devoured raw, and that they before thy pile I would cut the necks of 12 illustrious sons of the Trojans, enraged on account of thee slain. He spoke, and meditated unworthy deeds against noble Hector, having stretched him prone in the dust before the bier of Menoetiades. But they each stripped off his brazen, glittering armour, and unyoked their high-sounding steeds. They sat also in crowds at the ship of swift-footed Achaedes, but he afforded to them an agreeable funeral feast. Many white bulls were stretched around by the axe, having their throats cut, and many sheep and bleating goats. Many white-tusked swine also, abounding in fat, were extended for roasting in the flame of Vulcan, and on every side around the dead body flowed abundant blood. But the chiefs of the Greeks led the king, the swift-footed son of Peleus, to noble Agamemnon, hardly persuading him, enraged at heart on account of his companion. But when advancing they reached the tent of Agamemnon, he straightway ordered the clear-voiced heralds to place a large tripod on the fire, if he could persuade the son of Peleus to wash away the bloody gore. But he sternly refused, and besides swore an oath. No, by Jove, who is both the supreme and the best of gods, it is not lawful that ablution should come near my head before I place Patroclus on the pile, and have thrown up a mound, and shorn my hair. For not to such a degree will sorrow a second time invade my heart, whilst I am among the living. But nevertheless, let us now yield to the loathsome banquet. But on the morrow, O king of men, Agamemnon, give orders to bring wood, and dispose it so as is proper that a dead body enjoying it should descend beneath the obscure darkness, so that the indefatigable fire may consume him very quickly from our eyes, and the people may return to their occupations. Thus he spoke, but they indeed readily listened to him and obeyed. Then they, each sedulously preparing supper, feasted, nor did their mind lack aught of an equal feast. But when they had dismissed the desire of food and drink, some departed in order to lie down, each to his tent. But the son of Peleus, on the contrary, amid his many Myrmidons, lay near the shore of the far-sounding sea, heavily moaning, in a clear spot where the waves splashed against the shore. When sweet sleep, diffused around, took possession of him, relaxing the care of his mind. For he was very much fatigued as to his fair knees, chasing Hector at wind-swept Ilium. But to him came the spirit of wretched Patroclus, like unto him in all things, as to bulk, and beautiful eyes, and his voice. And like garments also were around his body, and he stood over his head, and addressed him. Sleepest thou, O Achilles, and art thou forgetful of me? Thou didst not indeed neglect me when alive, but now that I am dead, bury me, that I may as soon as possible pass the gates of Hades. The spirits, the images of the deceased, drive me far away, nor by any means permit me to be mingled with them beyond the river. But thus I do wander round the ample-gated dwelling of Hades. But give me thy hand, I beseech thee, for I shall not again return from Hades after thou hast made me a partaker of the fire. For by no means shall we, being alive, sitting apart from our dear companions, deliberate counsels. But the hateful fate which befell me when born has snatched me away. And to thyself also, O god like Achilles, thy fate is to perish beneath the wall of the noble Trojans. But another thing I bid, and will command, O Achilles, if thou wilt obey, not to lay my bones apart from thine. But as we were nurtured together in thy palaces, when Menoetius led me from Opus, a little boy, to thy home on account of a melancholy homicide, on that day when, imprudent, I slew the son of Amphidamas, not wishing it, and raged about the dice. Then Peleus received me in his abode, carefully reared me, and named me thy attendant. So may the same tomb contain our bones, the golden vase which thy venerable mother gave thee. But him swift-footed Achilles answering addressed, Why, O venerable friend, hast thou come to me, and commandest each of these things to me? Yet will I readily accomplish all these things for thee, and obey as thou commandest. But stand nearer to me, that embracing each other even for a little while we may indulge in sad lamentation. Thus then having spoken, he stretched out with his friendly arms, nor caught him, for the spirit went gibbering beneath the earth like smoke. Then Achilles sprang up astonished, and clapped together his hands, and spoke this doleful speech. Alas! There is indeed then even in the dwellings of Hades a certain spirit and image, but there is no body in it at all. For all night the spirit of miserable Patroclus stood by me, groaning and lamenting, and enjoined to me each particular, and was wonderfully like unto himself. Thus he spoke, and excited among them all a longing for lamentation, and rosy-fingered morn appeared to them while weeping around the miserable corpse. But King Agamemnon incited everywhere from the tents both mules and men to bring wood, and for this a brave man was roused, Meriones, the servant of valour-loving Idomeneus. And they went, holding in their hands wood-lopping axes and well-twisted ropes, and before them went the mules. They passed over many ascents, descents, and straightways, and crossways, but when they reached the forest of many-rilled Ida, hastening, they cut down the towering oaks with a keen-edged brass. These greatly resounding fell, and the Greeks then splitting them, tied them upon the mules. But they pained the ground with their hooves, eager to reach the plain through the close thickets. But all the woodcutters carried trunks of trees, for so Meriones, the servant of valour-loving Idomeneus, ordered, and afterwards threw them in order upon the shore, where Achilles designed a mighty tomb for Patroclus, and for himself. But when they had thrown on all sides immense quantities of wood, remaining there in a body, they sat down. But Achilles immediately ordered the warlike Myrmidons to gird on the brass, and to yoke each his horses to his chariot. But they arose and were arrayed in their armour, and both the combatants and the charioteers ascended their chariots, the cavalry indeed first, but a cloud of infantry followed after in myriads. And in the midst his companions bore Patroclus. They covered all the dead body over with hair, which cutting off they threw upon it. But noble Achilles held his head behind, grieving, for he was sending a blameless companion to Hades. But they, when they reached the place where Achilles pointed out to them, laid him down, and immediately heaped on abundant wood for him. Then again swift-footed Achilles remembered another thing. Standing apart from the pile, he cut off his yellow hair, which he had nurtured, blooming, for the river Spercheius, and moaning he spake, looking upon the dark sea. In vain, O Spercheius, did my father Peleus vow to thee, that I, returning to my dear native land, should there cut off my hair for thee, and offer a sacred hecatomb, and besides that I would in the same place sacrifice 50 male sheep at the fountains, where are a grove and fragrant altar to thee. Thus the old man spake, but thou hast not fulfilled his will, and now since I return not to my dear fatherland, I will give my hair to the hero Patroclus to be born with him. Thus saying, he placed his hair in the hands of his dear companion, and excited amongst them all a longing for weeping. And the light of the sun had certainly set upon them, mourning, had not Achilles, standing beside, straightway addressed Agamemnon. O son of Atreus, for to thy words the people of the Greeks most especially hearken. It is possible to satiate oneself even with weeping. But now do thou dismiss them from the pile, and order them to prepare supper. O son of Atreus, for to thy words the people of the Greeks most especially hearken. It is possible to satiate oneself even with weeping. But now do thou dismiss them from the pile, and order them to prepare supper. We, to whom the corpse is chiefly a care, will labour concerning these things, but let the chiefs remain with us. But when the king of men Agamemnon heard this, he immediately dispersed the people among the equal ships. But the mourners remained there, and heaped up the wood. They formed a pile 100 feet this way and that, and laid the body upon the summit of the pile, grieving at heart. Many fat sheep and stamping-footed, bent-horned oxen they skinned and dressed before the pile, from all of which magnanimous Achilles, taking the fat, covered over the dead body with it from head to feet, and heaped around the skinned carcasses. Leaning towards the bier, he likewise placed vessels of honey and oil, and sighing deeply, hastily threw upon the pyre 4 high-necked steeds. There were 9 dogs, companions at the table of the departed king, and slaying 2 of them, he cast them upon the pile, Also 12 gallant sons of the magnanimous Trojans, slaying them with the brass, and he designed evil deeds in his mind. Next he applied to it the iron strength of fire, that it might feed upon it. Then he groaned aloud, and addressed his beloved companion by name. Hail, O Patroclus, even in the dwellings of Hades, for I now fulfill all things which I formerly promised thee. 12 brave sons of the magnanimous Trojans, all these along with thee shall the fire consume. But I will not suffer Hector, the son of Priam, to be devoured by fire, but by the dogs. Thus he spoke, threatening, but about him the dogs were not busied, for Venus, the daughter of Jove, drove off the dogs both days and nights, and anointed him with a rosy unguent ambrosial, that he might not lacerate him, dragging him along. Over him also Phoebus Apollo drew a dark cloud from heaven to the plain, and overshadowed the whole space, as much as a dead body occupied, lest the influence of the sun should previously dry the body all around, with the nerves and limbs. Yet the pile of dead Patroclus burned not. Then again noble Achilles meditated other things. Standing apart from the pile, he prayed to 2 winds, Boreas and Zephyrus, and promised fair sacrifices, and pouring out many libations with a golden goblet, he supplicated them to come, that they might burn the body with fire as soon as possible, and the wood might hasten to be burned. But swift Iris, hearing his prayers, went as a messenger to the winds. They indeed together at home with fierce-breathing Zephyrus were celebrating a feast, when Iris hastening stood upon the stone threshold. But when they beheld her with their eyes, they rose up and invited her to him, each of them. But she, on the contrary, refused to sit down, and spoke this speech. No seat for me, for I return again to the flowings of the ocean, to the land of the Ethiopians, where they sacrifice hecatombs to the immortals, that now I too may have a share in their offerings. But Achilles now supplicates Boreas and sonorous Zephyrus to come, that ye may kindle the pile to be consumed, on which lies Patroclus, whom all the Greeks bewail. She indeed, thus having spoken, departed, but they hastened to go with a great tumult, driving on the clouds before them. Immediately they reached the sea, blowing, and the billow was raised up beneath their sonorous blast. But they reached the very fertile Troad, and fell upon the pile, and mightily resounded the fiercely burning fire. All night indeed did they together toss about the blaze of the pyre, shrilly blowing, and all night swift Achilles, holding a double cup, poured wine upon the ground, drawing it from a golden goblet, and moistened the earth, invoking the manes of wretched Patroclus. And as a father mourns, consuming the bones of his son, a bridegroom who dying has afflicted his unhappy parents, so mourned Achilles, burning the bones of his companion, pacing pensively beside the pile, groaning continually. But when Lucifer arrived, proclaiming light over the earth, after whom saffron-vested morn is diffused over the sea, then the pyre grew languid, and the flame decayed, and the winds departed again, to return home through the Thracian sea. But the sea groaned indeed, raging with swelling billow. But Pelides, going apart from the pile, reclined fatigued, and upon him fell sweet sleep. The others, however, were assembling in crowds round the son of Atreus, the noise and tumult of whom, approaching, awoke him, and being raised up, he sat, and addressed them. O son of Atreus, and ye other chiefs of the Greeks, first indeed extinguish the whole pile, as much as the fire has seized, with dark wine, and then let us collect the bones of Patroclus, the son of Menœtius, well discriminating them, for they are readily distinguished, for he lay in the center of the pyre. But the others, both horses and men, were burned promiscuously at the extremity. And let us place them in a golden vessel, and with a double layer of fat, till I myself be hidden in Hades. And I wish that a tomb should be made, not very large, but of such a size as is becoming. But do ye, O Achaeans, hereafter make it both broad and lofty, you who may be left behind me at the many-benched barks. Thus he spoke, and they obeyed the swift-footed son of Peleus. First of all, indeed, they totally extinguished the pyre with dark wine, as much as the fire had invaded, and the deep ashes fell in, and weeping they collected the white bones of their mild companion into a golden vessel, and a double layer of fat. Then laying them in the tent, they covered them with soft linen. Next they marked out the area for the tomb, and laid the foundations around the pile, and immediately upraised a mound of earth, and heaping up the tomb returned. But Achilles detained the people there, and made the wide assembly sit down. But from the ships he brought forth prizes, goblets, tripods, horses, mules, and sturdy heads of oxen, and slender-waisted women, and hoary iron. First he staked as prizes for swift-footed steeds, a woman to be borne away, faultless, skilled in works, as well as a handled tripod of 22 measures for the first. But for the second he staked a mare 6 years old, unbroken, pregnant with a young mule. For the third he staked a fireless tripod, beautiful, containing 4 measures, yet quite untarnished. For the fourth he staked 2 talents of gold, and for the fifth he staked a double vessel, untouched by the fire. Erect he stood, and spoke this speech to the Greeks. O son of Atreus, and ye other well-grieved Greeks, these prizes lie in the circus, awaiting the charioteers. If now, indeed, in honour of another, we Grecians were contending, then truly would I, receiving, bear the first prizes to my tent. For ye know how much my steeds surpass in excellence, for they are both immortal, and Neptune gave them to my father Peleus, who again delivered them to me. But nevertheless, I and my solid-hoofed steeds will remain apart from the contest, because they have lost the excellent might of such a charioteer, who very often poured the moist oil over their manes, having washed them with limpid water. They indeed standing lament him, but their manes hang down upon the ground, and they stand grieved at heart. However, do ye others through the army prepare, whoever of the Greeks confides in his steeds and well-fastened chariots. Thus spoke the son of Peleus, but the swift charioteers arose. But far the first arose Eumelus, king of men, the dear son of Admetus, who surpassed in equestrian skill. After him arose the son of Tydeus, valiant Diomede, and led under the yoke of the horses of Tros, which he formerly took from Aeneas. But Apollo preserved himself alive, next to whom arose the most noble son of yellow-haired Atreus, Menelaus, and led beneath the yoke-fleet steeds Agamemnon's mare Aethe, and his own stallion Podargus. Her Echepolus, the son of Anchises, had presented as a gift to Agamemnon, that he need not follow him to wind-swept Ilium, but staying there might be delighted, for Jove had given him great wealth, and he dwelt in wise Sicyon. Her persevering in the race, he led under the yoke. But Antilochus the fourth harnessed his beautiful maned steeds, the illustrious son of the magnanimous King Nestor, the son of Neleus, and swift-footed Pelion-born steeds drew his chariot for him. But his father standing near, spoke for his good, advising him, though himself prudent. O Antilochus, assuredly indeed both Jove and Neptune have loved thee, although being young, and have taught thee all kinds of equestrian exercise, wherefore there is no great need to instruct thee, for thou knowest how to turn the goals with safety, but thy horses are very slow to run, wherefore I think that disasters may happen. Their horses indeed are more fleet, but they themselves know not how to maneuver better than thou self. But come now, beloved one, contrive every manner of contrivance in thy mind, lest surprises by any chance escape thee. By skill is a woodcutter much better than by strength, and again by skill the pilot directs upon the dark sea the swift ship, tossed about by the winds, and by skill charioteer excels charioteer. One man who is confident in his steeds and chariot turns imprudently hither and thither over much ground, and his steeds wander through the course, nor does he rein them in. But he, on the contrary, who is acquainted with stratagem, though driving inferior steeds, always looking at the goal, turns it close, nor does it escape him in what manner he may first turn the course with his leathern reins. But he holds on steadily, and watches the one who is before him. But I will show thee the goal, easily distinguished, nor shall it escape thy notice. A piece of dry wood as much as a cubit stands over the ground, either of oak or of larch, which is not rotted by rain, and 2 white stones are placed on either side, in the narrow part of the way. But the racecourse around is level, either it is the monument of some man long since dead, or perhaps it has been a goal in a time of former men, and now swift-footed noble Achilles has appointed it the goal. Approaching this very closely, drive thy chariot and horses near, but incline thyself gently towards the left of the steeds, in the well-joined chariot seat, and cheering on the right-hand horse, apply the whip, and give the rein with thy hands. Let thy left-hand horse, however, be moved close to the goal, so that the nave of the well-made wheel may appear to touch the top of the post. But avoid to touch upon the stone, lest thou both wound thy horses, and break thy chariot in pieces, and be a joy to the others, and a disgrace to thyself. But my beloved son, mind to be on thy guard, for if at the goal thou couldst pass by in the course, there will not be one who could overtake thee in pursuit, nor pass thee by. Not if behind he drives noble Arion, the swift steed of Adrastus, which was from a god in race, or those of Laomedon, which, excellent, have here been reared. Thus speaking, Nelean Nestor sat down again in his own place when he had mentioned the most important points of each matter to his son, and Meriones fifth harnessed his beautiful maned steeds. Then they ascended their chariots and cast lots into the helmet. Achilles shook, and the lot of Antilochus, son of Nestor, leaped forth. After him King Eumelus was allotted, but after him spear-renowned Menelaus, son of Atreus, and Meriones was allotted to drive after him. But the son of Tydeus, by far the bravest, was allotted to drive his coursers last. Then they stood in order, and Achilles pointed out the goals afar off in the level plain, and near it placed godlike Phoenix as an umpire, the armor-bearer of his own sire, that he might attend to the race and report the truth. Then they all at once raised their lashes over their steeds, and struck them with the reins, and cheered them on with words incessantly. But they rapidly flew over the plain, far away from the ships swiftly, and beneath their breasts the excited dust stood up, raised like a cloud or a whirlwind, whilst their manes were tossed about by the breath of the wind. Sometimes indeed the chariots approached the fruitful earth, and at others bounded aloft, but the drivers stood erect in their chariots, and the heart of each of them, eager for victory, palpitated, and each animated his own steeds, but they flew along, stirring up dust from the plain. But when now the fleet steeds were performing the last course, back towards the hoary deep, then appeared the excellence of each, and the course was immediately extended to the horses, and then the swift-footed steeds of the son of Pharis swiftly bore him away. The male Trojan steeds of Diomede, however, bore themselves next to them, nor were they at all far distant, but very near, for they always seemed as if about to mount into the chariot, and with their breathing the back and broad shoulders of Eumelus were warmed, for they flew along, leaning their heads over him. And certainly he had either passed or made the victory doubtful, had not Phoebus Apollo been enraged with the son of Tydeus, and accordingly shaken out of his hands the shining lash. Then from the eyes of him indignant tears poured, because indeed he beheld the others now going much swifter, whilst his steeds were injured, running without a goad. Neither did Apollo, fraudulently injuring Tydides, escape the notice of Minerva, but she very quickly overtook the shepherd of the people, and gave him his lash, and put vigor into his steeds. And to the son of Admetus, the goddess indignant advanced, and broke for him his horse yoke, and so his mares ran on both sides out of the way, and the pole was dashed upon the ground. He himself was thrown from the driving seat close by the wheel, and was lacerated all round in his arms, his mouth, and nostrils, and his forehead was bruised near the eyebrows, but his eyes were filled with tears, and his liquid voice was clogged.